Do 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 do. Okay, so let's start. Let's read through this little introduction on the side here. I'm looking at the Biur Angli, English explanation on Yoma, and it talks about the idea. I'm reading just down a few lines. The idea of setting aside the priest who would burn the red cow, which is coming up, seems to be derived from the setting aside of the high priest before Yom Kippur worship, which is what we're talking about. And both ideas are learned from the setting aside of Aaron and his sons for 7 days before the original sanctification of the altar in Vayikra. Part of the reason that the priest had to leave his house was to prevent him from being with his wife and thereby becoming ritually impure. Tame. There are two opinions as to what Bira is. So that's just a future Mishnah. Okay. I'm still reading the intro in English. Tractate Yoma begins with preparations made 7 days before Yom Kippur falls. This whole chapter deals with the week before Yom Kippur and how the rabbis instruct the high priest.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Now, I can. Were you saying something? Can you hear me? Shmuel? Hey.
Oh my, I can't hear anything.
You can't hear me?
Rabbi, you might have been muted.
Was I muted? Can you hear me? Shmuel? Anyway, I'm going to read a bit. This whole chapter deals with the week before Yom Kippur and how the sages instruct the high priest so that he will be able to correctly perform the Yom Kippur service. Okay. The Mishnah starts. You can hear. No, you don't hear.
No.
I just heard you. Maybe it's my mic. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? Apparently you don't hear. Hello? Hello? You don't hear. Let's get you on the phone then. For anyone watching, I'm sorry about this. Hi, Shmuel. I'm not sure why your audio isn't working, but we can do it from here. Hello? Okay, so it says Shivas Yamim Kodem Yom Kippurim, 7 days before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol Mibeito Lilishchat Palhedrin. The Kohen Gadol separates from his house, from his family, to the chamber of counselors. In the Beit Hamikdash, in the Temple Mount, there were many chambers. Welcome back, Shmuel. There were many chambers. And the Kohen Gadol, in order to avoid becoming impure, so Shmuel's back, 7 days before Yom Kippur, the Kohen separates from his family and his house and goes to the chamber of counselors, the Lishchat Palhedron. This is one of the many chambers on the Temple Mount by the Beit HaMikdash, by the temple. He would do this in order to avoid becoming impure and unable to perform the Yom Kippur service. So he would separate and go there. Umatkinin lo kohen acher taktav. They would prepare a replacement kohen in case shema ye'era bo psul, in case something would happen that would cause him to be disqualified to be the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. They would prepare a different kohen that would fill his place in case something happened. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af isha acheret matkinin lo. They would even prepare another woman to marry were something to happen. Shema tambut ishto, perhaps his wife would die. If his wife died, he wouldn't be able to perform the temple service. Shenemar, as it says, v'chiper ba'ado ba'ad beito, he performs an atonement on himself and his family. And since it specifically mentions his beito, his house, and the rabbis teach beito, his house, zo ishto, this is his wife. And we learn many Musar lessons from this, that beito is his wife. His house means his wife. Amrilo, they replied to Rabbi Yehuda, Im Kain, if this is so that we're even going to prepare another woman for him, Ein L'davar Sof, there is no end to the matter, and that would be, it would be perhaps impractical, or perhaps just taking it too far.
Rabbi, does Ein L'davar Sof come up a lot in the Mishnayot?
It is fairly common. It's a.
I'm a big fan of the phrase.
Yeah.
Kol Shivat Hayamim. Or are you looking through the?
I'm looking through the English.
My screen's very small above.
Anyway, okay, let's go to the second Mishnah. That's the first Mishnah in Masechet Yoma, talking about Yom Kippur. So the first Mishnah, just to bring it together, a week before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol would go to a special chamber and he wouldn't go back to his house the entire week before Yom Kippur, so that he wouldn't be with his wife, so that he wouldn't become tameh. And they would even prepare a replacement, a second. And the rabbis argued about how far to take that. Rabbi Yehuda says you would even prepare another wife for him. Okay.
So I'll take the second Mishnah if that's good with you.
Great.
Kol Shivat Hayamim Uzorek et Hadam Umaktir et Aktoret Umetiv et Hanerot Umakriv et Harosh Ve'et Haregel. All 7 days, he sprinkles the blood, umaktir et aktoret, and burns the incense, umetiv et hanerot, and cleans the lamps, umakriv et harosh ve'et haregel, and offers the head and the leg. Usa'ar kol hayamim im ratzah le'akriv makriv. And on all other days, if he wants, he offers shekoyin gadol makriv chelek berosh v'notel chelek barosh. In all other days, if he wants, he offers. For the high priest is first in offering a portion, and has first place in taking a portion.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. So during the rest of the year, the Kohen Gadol is not obligated to perform any of the temple services. He can if he wants, and the Mishnah says that he has priority. He has first choice if he does want to do the service himself in the temple. But the week before Yom Kippur, he's obligated to do these specific services in the temple, so that he's more familiar with them, and he's practiced.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's go. Let's go on to Mishnah 3, Gimel. Will I read this one? Masru lo zakenim miziknei beit din. They would give over to him. They would have prepared to help him elders from the elders of the Beit Din. So these are the scholars, the accomplished scholars. V'kor in lefanav v'seder hayom. They would read in front of him the order of the day of Yom Kippur. So they would practice with him what was going to happen. The omrim lo, and they would say to him, Ishi kohen gadol, my sir, the high priest, or Ishi kohen gadol, my dear kohen gadol, kara ata beficha, shema shachachta o shema lo lamadta. Read us over what we've learned yourself. Maybe you have forgotten a detail, or maybe you didn't learn something properly. Erev Yom Kippurim, Shachrit, in the day before Yom Kippur in the morning, Ma'amidin Oto B'Shar Mizrach, they would bring him to the eastern gate, Uma'avirin Lefan of Param Ve'elim Ukvasim, and they would show him, pass before him, cows and rams and sheep, Kadeshi Makev Ragla Voda, so that he would be recognized and familiar with the service. Now, I don't know, Shmuel, if you started learning the history series that I sent to you.
No, I really should get on that.
In that history series, it talks about, in the Second Temple period, the high priest was not always a learned man. There are, I don't have the source, but there are teachings that it was, the high priest would go into the temple on Yom Kippur with a chain around his leg, so that if he died, they would pull him out. So there were times when it was fairly common that they would die.
Yeah, when they sold the position.
Right, they would sell the position. There were quite. The Chashmonaim were the Chashmonaim themselves, even the righteous ones. They were both the kings and the priests. Sometimes the king and priest were the same person, which is not allowed. We can even read a little bit of this intro here. I'm sure it gives some of the history. This Mishnah describes how the elders educated the high priest during the week that preceded Yom Kippur. We can easily note that the rabbis anticipate that the high priest will be completely uneducated in Torah and in the proper ways of the temple service. Indeed, they don't think that he even knows how to identify common sacrificial animals. According to the traditional understanding of this Mishnah, the high priest that served in the Second Temple period were appointed by the kings out of political considerations and not for their expertise in temple practice or for their personal piety. This is largely corroborated out by other descriptions of the high priest in such writings as Josephus and other historical works. However, the rabbi's description of the high priest's utter ignorance may be exacerbated by the Second Temple rivalry between the Pharisees, the rabbi's spiritual forefathers, and the Sadducees, a sect to which many high priests belonged. Another interesting, the king was often a Sadducee, and they would appoint the high priest, who was also. And these were often very secularized, Hellenistic people. Another interesting way of understanding this Mishnah is to note the tension between the genealogically transmitted priesthood and the Torah, which is transmitted from teacher to pupil and not necessarily from father to son. So it's pointing out that, and we had this in Masechet Rosh Hashanah as well, the difference between the Beit Din, which is a meritocracy and not passed within families, and the Kohen, the priest, which is father to son. The rabbis generally favored the relationship of teacher to pupil, even over that of father to son, but also realized that the priesthood was genealogical. In the high priest who must serve in the temple's most critical service, even though he was an ignoramus, these two values distinctly clash. Okay, let's go to Mishnah 4. Daled, you want to read?
Sounds good. Arba, Daled. Kol shiv'at hayamim lo hayu me'onin mimenu me'achal u'mishteh. Erev Yom Kippurim im chashecha lo hayu menichim oto le'chol harbe. All the 7 days, they did not me'onin, withhold from, they did not withhold food and drink from him. However, on Erev Yom Kippurim, near nightfall, they would not let him eat. Lo hayu menichim oto le'chol harbe mipnei shehama'achil mevi et hashena, because much because food brings about sleep. That's very interesting. It makes sense. It's very logical. Towards evening, they wouldn't let the Kohen Gadol eat.
Right. They didn't want him to sleep the night before Rosh Yom Kippur. They were worried that were he to sleep, he would have a emission that night and be impure. And so they didn't want him to sleep the night before Yom Kippur. And would therefore limit that he wouldn't eat a lot. Yeah.
Hang on. You're saying he wouldn't sleep at all?
He wouldn't sleep at all the night before Yom Kippur. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He would pull an all-nighter before Yom Kippur.
It's kind of a big day, you know?
Yeah. Oh my. Okay. It makes sense. But that's
sure. that's not a big deal.
Seems like a big deal.
I mean, not like impossible that he would. Sleep.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very important day, and you wanted to take all precautions. He was the person. You know, he's he's like the pitcher, the lead pitcher, and the final game of the World Series. You know, he's going to do everything to make sure he's able to function. Which
but
for him means
on the
not
night
sleeping.
of Yom Kippur, on the night of Yom Kippur, though, he would.
The night before Yom Kippur. Yeah.
Well, hang on. Okay, so when it says Eve, does that mean the 10th is the night of Yom Kippur? So on the 9th, he wouldn't sleep.
I assume it means. I assume it means the night that actually is Yom Kippur.
Oh.
Because it says he wasn't eating on Erev Yom Kippur itself. Because the temple service is not at night. The temple service is the next day, I think, like where he goes into the Kodesh Kodashim.
Okay, so on the 9th at around Mincha time, he wouldn't in the afternoon. He wouldn't really be eating so much, preparing his stomach to be small in a way. and then the 10th at night, he wouldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It makes much more sense. I was thinking on the 9th he wouldn't sleep. No,
a little bit like what we do. We don't eat on Yom Kippur so that we're on Yom Kippur, so that we're able to focus on our avoda, on our service. That he needed to not eat the night before, day before. Okay, so, Mishnah 5.
Hey.
Misaruhu zikne beitin lezikne kahuna. The elders of the court passed him over to the elders of the priesthood. Ve'elu la'aliyat beit avtinas, and they took him to the upper chamber in the house of Avtinas. V'hishpi'uhu v'niftaru v'halchu lahem. V'hishpi'uhu, they had him swear. V'niftaru, and left. V'halchu lahem. I'm not sure what the language there implies, but they went away. We'll have to look into that. Vamrulo, and they said to him, Ishi Kohen Gadol, Sir, my dear Kohen Gadol, Anu Shluchei Beitin. We are the messengers of the court. Va'ata Shlucheinu, you are our messenger. Ushliach Beitin. And also the messenger of the court. Mashbi'in anu alecha v'misha shikein shemo b'bayit hazeh. We are having you swear to the one who dwells, whose name dwells in this house. Shelo tishana davar mikol ma she'amarnu lach, that you will not veer from any matter that we have said to you. Hu poresh ubocha, he would turn aside and weep. Hein portion ubochen, and they would turn aside and weep. This is as the elders of the court are departing from the Kohen Gadol. I'm going to read an introduction on this Mishnah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Did you hear the previous part?
Oh, I heard it. I heard the Mishnah.
Good. Yeah. Many of the high priests were Sadducees, or perhaps more accurately had Sadducean leanings. The Sadducees debated with the Pharisees the proper form of the Yom Kippur ritual. As I explained below, in the Mishnah's eyes, the elders spend a week teaching the high priest how to perform the service in the proper Pharisaic manner. Our Mishnah describes the parting words between the elders and the high priest, where they remind him to act as they see proper. The house of Avtinas, where they would have this swearing in and be passed over to the elders of the priesthood, is where the incense was made, and he would learn to make the incense there that he would make on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh Kodashim. The Talmud relates that the rabbis held that the high priest would put the incense into the incense pan, the ketoret, into the ketoret pan outside of the Holy of Holies, and then go inside. So these are the more Hellenized Jews would held like that, whereas the Pharisees, the rabbis, held that this was done inside. So they were telling him to do as the rabbis taught. So it's interesting why they both cry. It certainly would warrant more looking into. It's touching and fascinating historically as well. It could be that they're both crying because the situation has come to that where they don't trust the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, to know how to do the service properly. Seems to be the simplest, the obvious answer. The Rambam in the Pirush Mishnayot says he would cry because they suspected him of minus, which is like heresy. and that they would cry because they had suspected him, and it is forbidden to suspect.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Okay.
Very interesting situation all over. Shesh.
Yeah.
Mishnah Vav. That is an interesting Mishnah. This is Vav. Im haya chacham doresh. If he was a sage, he would expound. He would explain. Vim lav talmidei chachamim dorshim lefanav. And if not, the sages would explain it before him. Vim ragil likrot kore. And if he was familiar with the reading, he would read. Veim lav korin lefanav. And if not, they would read before him. Ubame korin lefanav, ube Iov, uba Ezra, uvidivrei hayamim. Ubame korin lefanav. And what would they read before him? From Iov, from Ezra, and from the Chronicles? Is that Divrei Hayamim? Yes. Zechariah ben Kvutal Omer. Zechariah, the son of Kvutal, says, Ha'amim harbe kariti lefanav beDaniel. Zechariah ben Kvutal says, I have often read before him from Daniel.
Okay.
Introduction. His Mishnah
So this is
has
the
now reached the night before Yom Kippur. As we learned in Mishnah 4, he had to stay up all night. Our Mishnah teaches that in order to keep himself awake, he would study Torah all night. If he were a sage, he would expound. If not, the sages would expound. Okay, so basically, if he knew what he was reading, if he knew how to expound upon the Torah, he would. But otherwise, he would have people there in order to do it for him, in order to keep it engaging, in order so that there would be an expansion, he'd be learning, he'd be staying awake. Of course, that's the whole goal. Yeah, that seems, yeah. It seems like all of the things that they'd read, Eov, Ezra, Chronicles, and Daniel are all from books of Ketuvim, the last portion.
Exactly. Ketuvim. Yeah. Okay. Mishnah 7. Bikesh namnem, if he wished to sleep, Pirche Kahuna, the young priests, Makin lefanav be'etzba tsereda, they would snap their fingers, ve'omrimlo, and say to him, Ishi Kohen Gadol, my dear Kohen Gadol, amod v'hafeg achat alaritzba, stand up and drive the sleep away by standing once on this floor. Amod v'hafeg, I guess that means to drive the sleep away, to wake up by standing, by standing on the floor. Umasikanoto, they would keep him busy. They would ma'asik, osek him. They would keep him busy ad she'agia zman shchita, until the time came for the shchita, the slaughtering of the morning sacrifices.
I wonder if this is the kind of thing that they would do if the Kohen Gadol was competent. This seems like, I don't mean to belittle what they're saying. It seems like babysitting, but I'm not trying to put anything down.
It does. So on the one hand, I would say there was that historical story, where the high priest could have, really been someone totally not educated, But perhaps this was also a process like I don't know, just like the high priest was the going into this incredibly profound, prophetic, important process, I guess. And the rest, he was the representative and the messenger of the rest, the entire people, everyone. Everything depended on him. So he kind of becomes the focal point, like the focus of all of our I guess I would say he becomes he we all become him. He becomes all of us, and we're just looking to support him and
yeah,
make sure
I
he's
guess
successful.
I could see this. Yeah, I could see this being a really positive thing. It's I guess I'm being swayed and moved by their backstory of so much caution. I think that's what's probably made me read this more as babysitting. Whereas obviously, if I was getting ready for one of the most important days of the year, if not my life, then I would love to have company learning with me all night if that was the case. So yeah, Tove. Yeah, right. That's also good imagery that we're all becoming him in a way. Okay, chet.
Yeah, it's also super
Oh,
important. It also reminds of a wedding. Um,
huh.
before someone gets married, they're not alone for the entire day.
Oh, true.
Uh, just so if anyone doesn't know who might watch, before a Jewish wedding, the groom and the bride, the chassan and kala, they usually have a close friend who spends the entire day before the wedding and the day of the wedding uh, with them. They don't go anywhere alone. Also, after the wedding, the groom, the chassan and kala don't go anywhere alone. If they want to go to the store, someone will walk them. Want to go to shul, someone would ideally walk them.
Ah, באמת?
Really, and it could be you want to just be certain that even the one thought or you want him. This is such an important and um, um, essential and
Yeah,
what's the word?
much.
Distilled, distilled time. Potent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very. You can feel it, and even just for people who are showing up to the wedding.
Yeah.
Mishnah Chet.
Mishnah Shmona.
Sof.
Okay.
Mishnah Shmona. Sof. Perek Aleph. Okay. מתחילים. So it begins. בכל יום תורמין את המזבח בקריאת הגבר בו סמוך לו. Every day, they would remove the ashes from the mizbeach, the altar, at the time of the cock's crow, o samochlo, or close to that time. Ben lefanav, ben lecharav, either before or after. B'yom Kippurim, mechatzot, on Yom Kippur, from midnight. This is, of course, seasonal midnight, not 12 on the clock. Umeraglim me'ashmura harishana. And on the regalim, on the festivals, from the end, be'ashmura harishana, in the first watch, it's saying at the end of the So I'll continue. V'lo hayta kriyata gever miga'at ad shehayta Ezra mela'a Misrael. And the cock's crow would not arrive before the temple court was full of Israelim, of Israelites. So this is every day they would remove the ashes from the altar around the time of the cock's crow, close to that time, before or after. But on Yom Kippur, from midnight, and on festivals, at the end of the first watch of the night, and the Velohaita kriyata gever migad. That part doesn't make sense to me. Where it says, and the cock's crow would not arrive before the temple court was full of Israelites.
Yeah. So so the rooster crowing, I've just read in the English, the rooster crowing in the Talmud, it could also be not the rooster crowing, but the shamish, the superintendent at the temple, who would come and call the Kohanim to start the service, because the word in Hebrew gever can also mean a man. And that was as it was getting light before sunrise, and that was on a regular day. But on Yom Kippur, they would have these preparatory services held earlier at midnight, so that by the time day came, they would be fully ready to do the service of Yom Kippur. And the effect of this was that on Yom Kippur, when the sun rose, the temple would already be filled with people. Right, and that's talking about the enthusiasm that, by sunrise, the temple was filled with people.
Yeah, the biggest day of the year. I'm sure there are probably a lot of other people that aren't sleeping.
Oh, for sure. Even nowadays, it's special to go to the go to the Kotel, Yom Kippur, the night of Yom Kippur. People staying there. That's Mishnah. That's Parak Aleph. We'll please God continue with Parak Bet on either Motzei Shabbos or Sunday, or perhaps tomorrow if we can pull it off. But we'll see.